Hi, everybody. Will Alexander here with this week's interview chair. Today on the chair, we have dog show royalty, Miss Pat Lawrence. Hi, everybody. Today in the interview chair, we have a special guest, Pat Lawrence. How are you, Pat?
I'm just fine, Will, and you?
I'm great. You look fabulous. I haven't seen you in so long.
I know. We've all been sort of holed up. As I said earlier, it's the first time I've had on makeup since before COVID.
Well, you look great. So
Thank you.
And you're doing well.
Yep, doing well.
Good.
We
Excellent.
just stay at home, have our groceries delivered, occasionally go out for dinner at a place that's outdoors, and with friends or whatever. One of whom happens to be Terry, who lives less than 5 minutes from here, so that's great fun.
Oh, that's perfect.
She was my little sister in college and my sorority daughter.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Wow. That's a great story. All right. Well, let's begin then. The first question is, I want to know how old you were and how you got started in the sport of dogs.
I had just graduated college and had thought I wanted a German Shorthair Pointer. I didn't find any that were either available or something that seemed appropriate. But I found out that there was a kennel up in a little further out in Massachusetts. As a matter of fact, it was a kennel that was closely associated with Connie Barton many, many years ago, and her husband, Gordon, and went up there and saw a Doberman puppy and thought, okay, we'd like this Doberman puppy. So bought the Doberman puppy, and then the people that read him said, he's really turned out very nicely. We've got friends coming up this weekend to look at our German import dog by the name of Monroe Stebbins and his wife Natalie, and they're going to come and see the import dog. Why don't you just come up and meet them? So we went up. Deb looked at the German import dog, looked at the puppy, said, I don't want to show the German import dog. I want to show the puppy. So we thought, well, that's great. And having just gotten out of college, funds were not wonderful. So the arrangement was made. Terry and I would work for him, and in return, he would show the puppy. And that's how I got hooked into dog shows.
Wow.
And I haven't regretted it a minute. They've become my family, my alternate family, my friends, many, many of them for 40 and 50 years.
Tell me about Monroe Stebbins. Like, I worked for Bobby's, and I got to hear some stories, but I think that's great. I want to hear your stories.
Well, I think the stories you heard from Bobby were probably very different than the ones from Matt and Steb. He was a good person to work for, as was his wife, who was very intuitive about the dogs. And I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from her. I learned many other things from Steb. And going to the shows, because it was Dobermans, you learn structure. They're basically one of the basic dogs you can look at that will structurally give you the idea or the ideal for a number of other breeds. We've always thought that a poodle was a Doberman in drag. Uh, and there were other breeds that also fit into that same arrangement. The hardest part of working with Steb was getting him to the ring and to the right ring on time because he'd stop and he'd talk with someone or whatever, and we'd be sent out to corral him and get him in the right direction. But other than that, he was a
That
good
tends to
person.
happen to us.
Yeah, but he was a good person, and I learned a lot from both of them. I also learned because I had many or several years thereafter a bad accident and was unable to go in the ring and had to sit ringside many hours a day at shows to observe. And I think that sitting at ringside and watching different breeds, watching different people handle their dogs, it was a great opportunity for me to learn a great deal.
So how long were you with Steb?
Well, let's see. Well, from 1963 was when we started. And then I'd say 8 or 10 years.
Wow, good.
But then there was a bad accident and I couldn't handle at that point. And when I came back, I could only handle smaller dogs.
So you came back. What happened after you worked for Steb? Where did it go from there?
Well, I was still working for him when we had the accident.
Mhm.
Um,
Can you tell me about the accident or no?
sure. A man was drunk. Um, he was on US Route 1. He was speeding and he had we were on US Route 1 and he ran 3 stop signs and went through them and hit the car.
Jeez.
Our dog, Dorf, who was in the car, got thrown out. Luckily, a farmer found him and he got in touch with the police, and Steb had gotten in touch because, of course, I was hospitalized and Terry was, reasonably hurt as well. And they found him, and the farmer put him in a chicken coop of his and got back in touch with Steb, and he picked up the dog. After that, after several surgeries, I had lost a lot of length in one leg because I had one leg up, one leg down, uh, and Terry's father was sitting in front of me. That snapped and took my left leg to a 90-degree angle, and I lost about 3 inches or more. So we had a lot of surgery and plants and making it longer and things like that. But that's behind me, and there were some very positive things that came out of it. Um, Part of it being learning more about dogs from many different angles.
True, true. So what happened after you worked for Steb then? Where did you go from there?
Well, after I worked for Steb and got out of the hospital, I could not live where we were living in terms of proximity to hospitals and care and things like that, therapy. So Joy Brewster offered to have me come and live at her house, and I did that. And Joy was very helpful in terms of my recovery. I think she contributed a lot to it, and I stayed there for a number of years. And then, when time seemed appropriate, I moved on and moved into my own place with Jacqueline.
So you must have learned a lot with Joy as well then. The two of
Absolutely.
you. So
I learned about toys and bassets. It was a good time.
yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about the education of that?
Well, of course, the education of that not only included learning about a different number of dogs than what Steb had shown, It also included learning about bookkeeping, record keeping, things that a handler does.
Or
That
should
Ted's
do.
wife did for him. Um, and it was good. When I was out of the hospital, Chuck O'Neill, who was a dear friend, um, when I was ready, I said, I want to apply to judge.
And what year was that?
Oh, Lordy. I don't know. Maybe early 80s, late 70s. And he said, fine, what would you like to judge? And I gave him a list of breeds, which I think were like maybe 2 breeds and 5 groups in each of the 5 groups or 6 groups or whatever. And Chuck was very magnanimous. He was also in a position to get things done that he wanted done. And so I started out with several different groups with a couple of breeds in each of them. And at that point in time, you were judged by your background and your abilities. And that was why I was able to start off with more than one breed. And that was fun.
Who would you consider your mentors at that point? Obviously, Steb. And
Yeah, certainly Steb. Um, Bobby Barlow, in terms of some things. As I moved on with Joy, of course, Annie, who was a wonderful, not only judge, but person. As a matter of fact, Annie at one point said to me, I don't feel comfortable with Dobermans. Would you sit ringside and we'll talk about Dober? She was a wonderful woman, but she was also very much aware of her abilities and areas in which she didn't feel totally comfortable. And with the right people, she was upfront about both of them. Several different breeders. Um, Originally, Peggy Adamson a little bit. Um, I'll tell you a story that, and this was, I guess, after, or maybe I don't know if it was after or before I was hurt. I bought an import dog from Larry and Dora Worthing. That's where we met Nat and Steb at their house. And named her Lodor's leading lady. Their kennel name was Lodor. And her personality as such was, she was freakish. Not what I would want, but we were at a show, I think it was a major, and Nat said to me, Peggy loves to discover dogs. I want you to just take her, you keep her in the corner. No, don't bring her out with the others. You just keep her back there. Let Peggy keep looking to find her until finally she'll tell you what to do and where to go. We went winner's bitch that day. Peggy decided she had discovered something. Really finished, but wouldn't breed her and wouldn't show her again.
she was like that though, Peggy. I remember I didn't get to show it to her a lot because she was older, but she would come to Canada once in a while, and she found them. Like she would go looking for them.
That's right.
It was fun. I missed those kind of days.
Yeah, and she knew what she was looking for.
Yeah. So you're judging now. You're judging a few breeds and
well, I was licensed and approved, and I haven't turned them in because I still have hopes. I'm in physical therapy and working hard a couple of days a week, and then in the pool the other days of the week, and doing exercises at home. And I was able to do 5 groups and half of non-sporting, a good portion of non-sporting. Did not do any terriers. And I haven't let go of the license because um, nowadays we see people sometimes having an aid, whether it be a walker or a cane or something like that, in the ring with them if needed. And I want to get back to it. It's my passion.
Oh, for sure. You could tell it
I,
was.
when there are good dogs,
Mm.
which isn't always, but when you find something that brings the hackles up on the back of your neck, you've had a great day.
That's true. Well, we had a great win under you at the garden one year. You actually gave a dog I showed a beagle, fur cone country cousin. You gave him the variety, and then you gave Miss Fleetwood the variety in 13s, and then we ended up breeding those two. So
I remember that.
it was an exciting day. And so German Wirehair pointers, when did they come along?
That's a funny story.
I like funny stories.
Very funny story. I was living at Joy's, and a gentleman called and said, Joy, I want you to find a dog for me that will win groups and have entree in the best in show. And she said, well, that's a bit of a big package, but we'll see what we can do. And we talked about it. I said, okay, let's get him a rare breed or an unusual breed in something other than the groups that you're showing in now. And I had heard of a breeder up in upstate. Well, she really was in upstate Connecticut, just over the border in Massachusetts, Suffield, because another Doberman person had bought a puppy from her. And that puppy was really attractive. Her name was Funny Girl. And so I said, Joy, let's go up and see this Hilltop Kennel and see if there's anything there. So we went up there and looked at the puppies and looked at the puppies. And I said, I don't know anything about German Wirehair Pointer, but their basic structure is very similar to a Doberman. And if this one right here was a Doberman, she's a best in show bitch. And that's how we bought Cheesecake.
Wow.
Now, Cheesecake was to go to this man who lived in Ridgefield, Connecticut. We called him and said, well, we have your puppy. He came down. And I said to him, she's really beautiful. And as a sales pitch said, and if you don't want her, I do. He wanted her. He took her home. She broke out of everything he had and was running down the middle of the street in Ridgefield, Connecticut. He called and Joy answered and he said, well, let me talk to Miss Lawrence. And he did. And he said, Miss Lawrence, now it's time where you put your money where your mouth is. You said, if you don't want her, I do. You now own a German Wirehair Pointer bitch. I'm bringing her down and you can buy her. So what was I going to do? We bought her. That was the beginning of it all. It was all Cheesecake. She had a great career, won Best in Shows here. I believe also won a Best in Show up in Canada, but was a producer because she was line bred, almost inbred, and there were a lot of ways you could go with her, and that's what we did.
And how long did you breed them?
How long did I breed German Wirehair Pointer?
Yeah.
I hate to tell you. Let's see. I've got to
I won't
count.
tell anybody.
I have to count on my fingers. So let's say if we said from 83 or 4, 90, 2000, 2000, going on 50 years or more. So, I mean, I'm 82, so it's easy for me to have done that, and that's what I did. The other thing I did, I was teaching school. I was a guidance counselor. And I needed it because I also needed the insurance and all of that. I was teaching in the high school. I was counseling in the high school. And there was a very nice young counselor who was counseling 3 days a week. No, she was counseling full time in the middle school. And by then I wanted to get back to the shows. So I said to the superintendent, there's a way that you could save money. I said, I'd be willing to move down to the middle school and work 3 days a week and get paid for working 3 days a week. And Jean could come up to the high school, but her husband has insurance, so she doesn't need insurance. So my 3 day a week, as long as you'll fully insure me, would be fine. They said, fine. I said, fine, I'll work Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. That way I could do shows
Yes.
on Mondays and Fridays, because before that, we were coming home Sunday night at midnight, and I was waking up to go to school the next morning. So that worked out beautifully. And that's what I did for a long while. And then when I retired, and I retired from teaching at 55, I became a delegate and liked that very much. Got elected to the board of directors of the American Kennel Club. And as the board liaison, I was the board liaison to the parent club committee, which of course was my Loves. And I worked with the parent club committee for those 4 years and thought to myself, you know what? I like doing this better than sitting in the boardroom, because this has no conflicts. This has no things that make you grind your teeth at night. I think I won't run for my next 4 years, and I'd like to just be on the parent club committee. So I did that, and at the first meeting, I got elected chairman of the parent club committee, which I have been now for over 25 years. And that's been a great feeling, because we've done some wonderful things. We started the parent club conferences, we started breeder situations, a breeders committee, breeders education. And even while I was on the board, I worked with Maribeth and a number of other people like Cindy Vogels and Damra and Ann Bowes and people that I chose. And we started a breeders education committee to work on that still as I was a board member. I also got very active working with junior handlers and junior handling and the scholarship committee there. And I've loved it.
You've done everything.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So you haven't given up your license. You've over the years you've judged so many wonderful dogs. Are there some that come to mind that you can talk about that aren't currently being shown, but that they come to mind that left that picture in your head?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I worked for Steb, we showed a lot of Bouviers. And there have been several Bouviers that I've loved over the years. A lot of them bred by the Keishas.
The girls up here, yes.
Yeah. And I believe one was the one by the name of Demetrius.
Yep, Demetrius. I remember him.
Yep. And then there was a bitch. I did the Bouvier National a couple of times, and some of the breeding that she had was just wonderful. Some, you don't always get your wish, and I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to say what year, but I've loved Whippets. Started out with Peggy Hodge, and the highlight with us. Um, and that had nothing to do with, what I loved or didn't. But I'll tell you, there were some whippets that did not get to my group ring when I hoped perhaps they would. Um, but that's all right. That's when I found what I think was a wonderful little mini wire, and gave her the group. Did she have everything that I wanted? No, but she had most of what I wanted. There was one area that I would have changed, but she excelled so much in type and in other things that I had no choice. I'd never seen her. And she won the group that day. And I remember Angie and a couple of other people coming up and say, "Good for you." And I think one was Betty Ann. I said, "I love her. Is she perfect? No, but she excels in so much." I do believe that as a judge, you have to know where you can forgive.
Mhm.
And there was one part of her I had to forgive a little bit. And that's happened with a lot of breeds. They are not, in my mind's eye, a skeletal dog. That you just look at the skeleton, how they go down and back, and figure, well, that's my winner. First of all, about down and back, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, you see a little bit, but I see the dog when he goes around
Mhm.
because that's the outline, and I want the outline of my ideal dog to remain the same when he's moving, or when she's moving, or when they stop, uh, and when they're set up.
Oh, I lost your volume. I'm going to pause. Okay.
You see a dog going around, and he should be the same as when he stops on his own. There are so many wonderful handlers today. And over the years, you're one of them.
Well, thank you.
You can take a piece, or they can take a piece of a dog that is not ideal and make it so I never see it. Not when they're moving sideways too much, although you can adjust your speeds some. I remember with Gwen, God love her, I love her. And when she would walk a dog, I would say, "Gwenny, come on. I know what you're doing. Let's do it a little different way." And she'd laugh and we'd, joke, and then she'd do it a little different way. Some people have hands that they can absolutely make a dog look totally different. Some people do it a different way, but when they have a dog that's fine on their own, with a couple of other people, I'm specialing a wire hair pointer bitch right now. I have never, ever campaigned anything except the stuff that I had with Joy. And I haven't signed on to anything, and wouldn't have if she didn't have something in my background, something of my breeding in the background. And I guess I have to say because Joy was very involved with that breeding too. And this bitch, I'm not going to talk about her too much because I'm not going to try and promote her.
Oh, of course not.
But the relationship she has with the handler who is handling her, a relatively young handler, when you look at my age, who comes from terriers. Her name is Anne Marie. I'm not going to go beyond that. She and this bitch have a love affair. And there is nothing in the world that the bitch won't do for Anne Marie. And there's no one else in the world right now that the bitch really cares upon and as she does for Anne Marie. Of course, she's living with her and living in her house. someone told me at the National that they were asked, as a matter of fact, it was Judy Cheshire, who was very involved in wire hairs and carried on my line, um, that Anne Marie wanted to go to the ladies' room and said, Judy, will you hold her? The bitch spun around, locked in on Anne Marie, no matter what Judy did, talk to her, want to play with her, whatever. She watched. She watched her go down the hill, watched the building, waited until she came out, and when she came back up the hill, was as exuberant as could be, because right then and there, that was her person. Now, that's not her person when she goes home. And I'm sure you've had that experience with dogs that you've shown. You
You have
become
to.
their person.
Yeah, you really have to become their person of those special ones. So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
And it's wonderful when you see it happen. What's up, Bob? Come on. Next.
What advice would you give for someone like, say, myself? I'm taking my judging license. I'm writing it this next month. What advice would you give?
I'm really pleased you are, because I think you're going to make a contribution.
Well, thank you. I'm going to try my very best. I promise.
And that's who I want to see applying. People who really have dog experience and knowledge. In my opinion, we have too many 30-day wonders out there, pointing the bony finger, as Mrs. Clark would say. Um, and they may have been stellar with their own breed, and maybe even pretty good with their group. And then they're totally out of their water. But they get moved on and on and on. And I feel we're now correcting that a bit. But that's not fair to the exhibitor. It's not fair to the breeders. I really applaud you for doing this because I think you have a passion and you have a commitment to this sport and to the breeds. And I think you're a student. And that's what needs to happen. And that's what we need in this ring. Part of the problem, we have too many dog shows,
Yes.
many too many dog shows. So there's plenty of room for everybody to get all sorts of assignments. People think that judging dogs is glorious. Well, it is. It's glorious when the hair on the back of your neck goes up, as I've said, and you see something that absolutely fills your eye. Traveling is not glorious. Hotels are not glorious, more so now than ever before. So it's even the foreign assignments. Some of them have been wonderful, and I've loved them. I think this is a different time. I think traveling is a dangerous time and a different time. And you have to be so very careful for yourself and everybody else, and every hotel room you go into, and every plane you take. Um, so I would say to the people coming up, don't try to go too fast. You'll be out of your element. Only go for the things and the breeds that you have a real background in, a real feeling in, where you can go into a ring, have them go around, and you know 1, 2, 3, 4, just from that. If you can't do that with that breed, don't go for it. You've got to judge for type. Movement is secondary. Type is so important and is so different for so many breeds. You have to be a student. You have an obligation. You have an obligation to the exhibitors. You have the obligation to the handlers. You have an obligation to the others in the ring and outside the ring. And you have an obligation to the future of that breed. You've got to take it seriously.
That's good advice. I'm going to try my very best. I promise.
Honey, if you don't and I'm around,
So what have you been doing since you haven't been going to a lot of shows? What hobbies do you have, Pat? What have you been doing at home besides dogs?
well, the thing is this, I'm still chairman of the Parent Club Committee. I'm also on the Breeders Committee uh, that is being done now through the Parent Club, and will be a very big contribution, I think. So those are things that are going on. I go to physical therapy, and now it's water therapy twice a week. Right now, I'm going to a chiropractor twice a week. That helps a lot. My gait got off, leveling off my sacrum. Um,
So you're staying busy.
oh yeah, yes, very busy. And we do go out. Um, we go out to dinner with. We've got a large circle of friends here, and I don't know what's going to happen when we're starting to only eat inside. But as long as we were eating outside, it wasn't a problem. As a matter of fact, we just gave a party for 18 friends um, at an outdoor place, which was all like cocktails or drinks and hors d'oeuvres. And it was wonderful. It was
That sounds
wonderful
like
to
fun.
see these people doing it outside with masks and staying a distance. It was lots of fun. So there's a lot to do socially as well as in the dog world, and as well as rehabilitating. Um, Jacqueline's business, which she does all sorts of artwork for people who love dogs, the AKC store carries an awful lot of her things. And she gets me to help her with, I read things to her so she can put them in the computer. And, you know, occasionally I'll put in the eyes or to a nose or whatever. So, there's never a lot of doubt. I don't get bored.
True.
I'm not bored at all.
So do you see yourself judging again?
I'd like to, yes.
Yeah.
I want to.
Well, we want you to, so I hope it happens.
Thank you.
I'll give you one last question, then I'll let you get back to your busy day. If you were to meet the 20-year-old Pat Lawrence, is there any advice you'd give her now?
Would she be in the present time or then?
Then,
Then.
yeah.
I did it my way. There's not a lot of advice I'd give her. I'd say continue to value the people in your life. Continue to love the dogs in your life. Continue to want to learn. Continue to want to contribute. One of the things that I'm proudest of, Take the Lead started at our house. And it has become, when I'm on the board, I'm vice president of one of the vice presidents on the board. And it's been a wonderful organization for so many people. And there's a great feeling of worth in terms of helping. And there are so many people that need assistance that find what you love, do what you love. And a lot of those things that I'm doing now are the things I love. So I don't know how different it would be.
Another good answer. Well, I have to thank you for doing this for me. This is, I feel like I'm talking to royalty, but I am talking to
Oh,
royalty.
for goodness sake.
Dog show royalty.
I feel like I'm talking to royalty.
Ah.
Come on. You're a good man.
Oh, well,
You're a good man, and you will make an even bigger contribution than you have.
well, I promise I'll try my best. That's what I will do. I'm so glad you gave us this time for everybody to catch up of what you've been doing and then your thoughts on all these different topics. They're going to love it. So I enjoyed it. So.
Well, I love to chat, and I don't have a problem with it. As Jacqueline said,
Uh-oh.
you know how to bullshit. But I've loved it, and it's good, so good to see you.
It's good to see you.
That's what I miss. I miss seeing people. You know, even if it's for a minute, even if it's for you know, bump the elbows now because we don't hug. I just miss seeing so many of the people.
Yeah, I understand that.
They're the family. They become our family.
Oh, there's
Even
no question.
some people that you don't see all year long. And maybe you see them at the garden, and maybe you see them down in Florida at the AKC show. But they're your family.
Yep, it's very true.
Yep.
Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I've loved every minute of it. I'll do it again anytime.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. It was great to catch up. It was great to see you. You look great. If you like what we're doing here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. If you want to get a hold of me, get a hold of me at dogshowtips@gmail.com. Or if you just want to find out what's happening in Will's world, go to willalexander.net. Also, don't forget about the podcast. Wayne Kavanaugh and myself, The Dog Show Drive, every Thursday on your podcast services. Till then.